in a greater picture view, what we're talking about today is one of my really foundational heart songs as working with people and also in my own life, and it's conscious relationship building. And what a conscious relationship is all about, it's about really having an intention to be curious about what is this relationship about. And it isn't just intimate relationships, it's also about parenting, it's about relationships with friends, relationships in work, and being able to really understand that when I'm in conscious relationship and I'm being curious, what I'm really doing is that I'm choosing to lean into really becoming self-aware. And what I've noticed with conscious relationships is that this really, one way to say it is that that is what relationship is all about. What relationship is all about is being able to have somebody come into my life that interests me. And it really can be from the positive or it can be from the negative. It can be from the positive, like, oh God, you're just so beautiful and I'm just falling in love with you. I want to know more about you. And what I'm learning is that in these relationships is that whatever is being shown to me from that person, whatever is lighting up my curiosity, is actually a part of myself that I don't know yet. And so every single relationship that comes into part of myself that I don't know yet, that I get to learn about. And so I lean into my self-knowledge. And this is a choice. It's you don't have to be conscious in your relationships. You really don't. And you can be conscious in your relationships. And the more you get to know me, and if you choose to work with me, you'll know that that is actually my, that's my preference, is to have people do that. So we're talking in a bigger picture here today about conscious relationships. One of the first tips or skill sets to build around conscious relationships is personal boundaries. And so that's what we're going to concentrate on today. Another thing that you really want to know about conscious relationships and about leaning into self-knowledge is that not only is what you're seeing in somebody else something that you haven't owned yet in yourself. The other thing is to really start to understand and have a practice that other people's reactions to you is about them and not about you. So that's something that, if you have questions about, we can expound on. And that's one of the reasons why I'm talking first, in my first online session, I'm talking first about learning personal boundaries, because it is through that understanding and intentionally setting boundaries that you learn to be able to allow other people's reactions to you to be about them and let them be about their self-awareness, rather than you trying to change yourself so that they feel more comfortable. Okay. So this, on my screen when I see this, it is a little bit small, but these are all the blogs that I currently have available on my website about relationship building in some way, shape, or form. So these are all blogs. They're all available on my website. Please, by all means, check them out. It is about, it's about, you can be with the intimate other, it's about your partner, your life partner in life. It can be about parenting. Conscious parenting is one of my favorite skill sets to talk about and to practice. There is relationships at work. There are, there are friend relationships, which are so very important. But you know what? To me, it all ends up being its invitation to dive into a relationship about yourself. So it is the relationship with yourself and with the divine that is in you. And I'm using that word because that's the easiest one for me. Other people say, instead of divine, they might even say the word God or goddess, or they might say a greater power. But it is one of my tenets in my work is that we have a greater power, a greater energy that we are part of. That and just like in quantum mechanics, they say that 99.9% of an atom is space. Only a little bit is matter. And I translate that into spiritual integration work as that 99.9% of what's going on in our life is unseen. And this is what relationship and conscious relationship building really helps us work with. At the bottom of this slide, you'll see that I have a free ebook, which I'm very excited about, that, I actually have an ebook, woohoo! All right, so this is a quote from the blog that I wrote on learning to set your personal boundaries. And I think our everyday management of life includes many opportunities for our boundaries to be unconsciously set or to be set inappropriately. This can result in participating in situations and relationships that leave you feeling drained, resentful, unsatisfied with the way that you are living your life. Our boundaries, we really do set boundaries unconsciously all the time. And there's many reasons that we do that. One of them is that our family systems teach us from a very young age on how to set boundaries. And very often boundaries are set in a way of anger, for example. It's like, get out of my field, or no, stop that, or just by being angry. And that is actually a boundary set. Unfortunately, it's unconscious, and as we get older, we start using it as a pattern. And so it's one of the ways to look at boundary setting is to look at your family system and or what we call from Carolyn Mace, we call our tribe, the cultural ways of setting boundaries, but to start to be aware of whether you're conscious of them or not. It's really important to understand that setting boundaries is a natural thing to do, and it's not only natural, but it's necessary. And it's all our boundaries are set on some level in a continuum for self-protection. So we are setting boundaries to protect ourselves, and we're setting boundaries to protect our vulnerabilities. And it's really amazing how the psyche works. So if there is a part of your subconscious that is feeling uncomfortable or feeling vulnerable, it will come in a patterned way and set a boundary, even if you might not want to. And so it's really important to welcome boundaries and to do what you can to be compassionate with yourself, to accept these boundaries that come in. All right, so when you registered for this course, you were sent an email that had some questions that were set for you. And what I would love for you to do is to take out those questions right now and see if there's anything that that comes to your mind that you'd like to bring forth. And then another thing that I would love for you guys to do is to go ahead and get yourself comfortable and relax. And of course, if you're driving and listening to this is not something that I want you to do, okay? But if you're in a place where you can, feel your feet on the ground, get a sense of your behind in the chair, and also do this standing or lying down and making yourself comfortable. I just want you to drop into yourself with a few breaths. And I'm going to ask these questions of you just for a current. I know that you have answered them already, and perhaps you've already reflected on this before you came to this session. But I'm going to ask the questions now for you in your internal landscape. Take a breath, and here's the first one. What boundaries or limits are you able to easily set for yourself? Which ones come easy? Take a breath. What boundaries are difficult for you to set? With who? Or with what? Take a breath. Let that go. Where in your life are you feeling drained? Let the response come easily, and if no response comes, that's okay. And breathe. Where in your life are you feeling resentful? Be curious here. And where in your life are you feeling unsatisfied? Take a couple of more breaths. Thank that part of you that was listening to your questions. And come back to the circle. Sorry, you can tell I work with circles. And come on back to the presentation here. These last three questions that I asked you and that you've been thoughtful about here since you were invited to join the session. These last three questions are questions that the answers to those questions are indications of where you might want to contemplate setting boundaries. Another question to ask you is said here on this slide. What do I really want? Now we're not talking about, what do I really want? Oh, I really want to eat chocolate. Okay. It's more along the lines of what do I really want in my environment? What do I really want in my life? And if you were working with someone like me, there would be a question like, what's keeping you from getting there? And oh, so often when I ask that question, the response I get is, oh, it's because I need to take care of so-and-so, or oh, it's because I have to do such and such, or I can't do. And all of those words, those are where it's really worthy of self-inquiry and deepening into the question and being able to contemplate the idea of releasing some of these obstacles. And one of the ways to do it is to set boundaries. Okay, so in this blog, I came up with 3 tips that can help with your setting of boundaries. The first one is to practice responding rather than reacting. And what I mean by that is very often when somebody says something that one of your choices might be to react in anger or in a dismissive way or in a way that is defensive. Okay? That's what we call reacting. And that is actually, it's an unconscious boundary that's being set up that says, hey, you're too close, or hey, you're getting in, you're stepping on my space. One of the things that can happen is that if somebody says something that you might want to respond by reacting, is that if we can cultivate the skill set of being curious about what is happening in that dynamic right before the reaction happens, and you can respond in a way of, it can be anywhere from, if somebody says something that's hurtful, it's like, wow, I'm feeling triggered right now, or, and I'm using lingo, or ouch, that hurt, And you can, and instead of reacting in a pushback way that causes then a fight or something that is more uncomfortable, and it just ends up just blowing up, you can then respond and learn to respond in a way of, that doesn't work for me. What might work for me would be this. Are you available for that? Are you available for what I want to have happen? One of the other pieces, and I touched on this in the slide before, is that it's very important to remember that you always have choice. So when you're learning to set personal boundaries, and if you're moving into conscious relationship, it's really, really important to start looking at when you use the words should, I should do, I should, I have to have, I have to, or I can't. I just can't do that. The truth is, the bottom line truth is that you have choice. And I know in myself that the parts of me that are dedicated to saying I can't and I have to and I should, those parts of me don't buy into this truth that I have choice. So this is part of the skill set to start to build. Because one of the best boundary settings is understanding is to really come up with a clear no, that doesn't work for me, as well as a clear yes, that works for me. Now, I also have many people in my life who, not many, well, quite a few actually, people in my life who have gotten to the place in their boundary setting where they've learned to just say no to everything. Because when they say yes, they find themselves getting too involved, or their time is taken up too much. And so they've responded by setting a generic boundary of saying no whenever asked to do something. So that work then, if you're someone like that, to be able to, when the question comes, to be able to sit there and go, I could say yes to this. Okay. The other piece about setting boundaries and learning to set your personal boundaries, it's really important, a good tip, is to build your skill in using I messages. I messages are speaking about yourself rather than the other person. You might hear it said, it's speak from your own experience. And it's a bit deeper than that as well. It's about starting to cultivate the skill set of being aware of when you start saying the word you. So it's really important when we're learning to set boundaries, personal boundaries with people and with organizations and with parenting as well, and also with ourselves, and that's another story, is to be able to say, I feel, or instead of you are too much, is to say, I feel afraid when you are acting like this. I feel fear. Now, this requires vulnerability, all right? And so it's important. The most important I message that I want to cultivate for myself and that I encourage in you is to make sure that you're saying I messages to yourself, so you know what your experience is when somebody else is doing something that makes you angry or causes you fear or shame or sadness. When you think that they're causing you your feeling, it's important for you to cultivate the awareness of saying, hey, I'm feeling sad here. The most important thing is for you to cultivate self-compassion. So just in this session, once again, I would love for you to just take a couple of breaths and delve deep into yourself again. Just breathe into your own internal landscape and ask yourself this question. What is one thing that I can do that will nurture an attitude of compassion for myself? so you can allow yourself to set intentional personal boundaries where it might have been difficult for you to do so before now. If you all could ask this question of yourself each day, what is one thing that I could nurture? What's one thing I could do or say or feel? What's one thing that can help me nurture an attitude of compassion for myself? If you could ask yourself that question every day, it would be so wonderful. It would be so helpful. There would be a sense of ease in yourself. And it would allow you to be able to say no clearly or yes clearly. Take a breath and come back. Thank yourself. Also, and maybe this could have been a disclaimer at the beginning of the presentation, but it's an important one, and it's one that I think fits with this slide with self-compassion. Know that any goal that you have that is life-enhancing will require you to change your life in some way that will provide you with an opportunity to experience how much soul stamina you have to succeed in enhancing yourself. What I mean by this is that if you have a goal, if you make your goals and you concentrate on them being life-enhancing, life-affirming for yourself, soul growth, self-aware, conscious relationships, if you set goals in that way, know that the universe is going to provide you with opportunities to build that skill set. Very often, those opportunities seem to come in annoyances or ways to tempt you off that path. But if you can look at it like, and this is a Carolyn Maceism, if you can look at it as a form of Earth School, that all these skill buildings, all this, when you set a goal and the universe provides you with opportunities to experience it and practice the skill set that you're asking for this goal. Right? If you could look at it as a school, you could look at it as earth learning, it might be helpful. Instead of, oh my gosh, I want my goal to, walk down the path of happiness, and all of a sudden I'm getting all these experiences in life that are, that I'm reacting to in my old way. Well, if you can have a different attitude, if you can turn your attitude into an idea that to set a boundary and say, no, I'm not going that way anymore.